Psych Sessions podcast is sponsored by the Society for the Teaching of Psychology. That's STP. That's APA Division II, also known as our teaching tribe. For any information about STP, you can find their website at teachpsych.org. The deadline for proposals for STP's annual conference on teaching has been extended to May 1st. ACT will be held on October 8th to 10th in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And the inaugural recipient of STP's Mentorship of Teachers Award is Judith Bryant, Professor of Cognitive, Neuroscience, and Social Psychology at the University of South Florida. Join us at ACT, where Dr. Bryant will receive her award. Congratulations to her, and a little note from Eric and me. If you are not yet a member of STP, please go to their membership page and join for only $25 a year. You get so much good stuff. Let's support STP and all of the good things that it is doing to support our teaching community. Thanks.
Hello, and welcome to Psych Sessions, conversations about teaching and stuff. I am Eric Landrum, along with Garth Neufeld, your podcast hosts. As the name implies, we center on conversations about teaching, but we often veer into other interesting topics, which is the end stuff. This is episode number 89, where Garth and I had the opportunity to interview Janet Peters from Washington State University Tri-Cities in Richland, Washington. Before you hear the interview, please allow me to share some listening tips and some of my favorite moments. We started our discussion with Janet talking about the teaching model there at WSU Tri-Cities. Rather than a 3-bucket teaching, research, and service model where responsibilities might be divided, say 40-40-20 or 60-30-10, actually, Janet described the model that she actually likes a great deal and what attracted her to the job, where it's a 2-bucket model for her teaching in a secondary area where it's in theory, a 60-40 distribution of effort. We talked a little bit about her doctoral training at Colorado State University, where she earned her PhD in IO Psych in 2014. And we talked at great length and interestingly, of course, about really the passion that she has for teaching statistics and that she values the skills transfer that students come away with. She's actually turned her undergraduate statistics course into a service learning project where they work with a community partner. They collect data, they do analysis, they invite a panel of the community partners to the final exam and then present the outcomes of the project to that community partner. And it's a delightful project, and you can just hear the passion in Janet's voice when she's talking about that. Of course, that led us down to a couple other paths about, are you collecting assessment data? Are you recording these so that you can, get a little bit more mileage for yourself and for your students and for your alumni, for your website? And so we had that conversation, and Janet's just doing amazing work, and it's the kind of conversation where I think she realizes what she's doing, but I don't think she realizes how cool and how awesome, just the magnitude and extent of how innovative and how special what she is really doing. We talked a little bit about some of her influences and the people who were inspiring her experience at the ACT Incubator. And then we got to her undergraduate experience, and I had forgotten this until she reminded me that her undergraduate experience was at this little place called the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay, and one of her primary mentors there was Regan Gurung. And so she talked about that experience in Green Bay. She actually went there not to work with him, not as a psych major, but she went there on a swimming scholarship. And so her immediate family were all swimmers and were all outstanding swimmers, as it turns out. She's a first-generation college student, and so it was the athletics that got her to school, but it was the academics and the experiences. And if you listen really carefully, you can hear Regan's influence and reaching out to her after an exam in a class and saying, "Hey, you did really well. I just want to compliment you. I know how hard it must be to balance athletics and doing a good job academically." And then once she declares, and she wasn't even a psych major at that point, and once she declares psychology as a major, he reaches out again, and she eventually works with him as a teaching assistant and then as a research assistant. And you can just, it's not surprising, those of us who know Regan, to hear that story, but just to have it personified and to hear the student side of it, and these seemingly little things that we all know can have an impact, can have a huge impact on the outcome of a student's life and career and their professional development. And then as we kind of wind down the interview, it kind of got wound up in a way in that Janet really kind of lets us into this passion that she has. And we saw it and heard it earlier when she's talking about teaching statistics and feeling this passion about the transfer of skills. But I think we find kind of where it starts in her family development and this passion for competition and improvement and swimming and what she gets from this big, large family of hers, these competitions. And when asked about watching the Olympics, just, seeing her light up in person and hearing her voice, light up about it, talking about it, it was just really fun to be a part of that conversation. And to end on that note of you can be competitive and collaborative at the same time, and you can advance mutual goals was just really delightful. And of course, she was just so delightful to talk to. And I think about, where I am in my career 30 years in, I think about where she's in, 5 or 6 years in, and I think about, oh my gosh, our institution of higher ed is in such good hands when I think about the Janet Peters and those folks that we've been talking to on the podcast. When we have faculty members like her around the country, around the world, we are in such good hands in our future. So please enjoy this episode of Psych Sessions.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Psych Sessions. We are at the annual conference on teaching. We're in Denver, Colorado, and Eric and I are here with Janet Peters from Central Washington University. Is that right?
No. Incorrect.
What?
So, hi, Janet.
Wait, it's not CWU?
No, it's
Eastern Washington.
No,
Western Washington.
Also, no.
How rude. Let me do this.
Okay.
This is how we welcome a guest.
Wait, how is that? How did I get that wrong? Washington State University.
Washington State University, Tri-Cities.
I'm going to try this again.
Thank you.
Oh, you are the editor. Do you want to try again?
Of course.
Here, why don't you let me start and I'll hand it off to you. So when I do this with my hand, this is for the podcast listeners at home, I'm going to give a hand signal. So when I do this with my hand, that's going to be my signal to you that you can start talking.
I'm sort of embarrassed and sort of not embarrassed that I didn't know that. There's a lot of Washington things going on with Washington in the name, but I am sorry that I didn't know that.
Aren't you both in like the same state?
Oh, we're on the steering committee for Tip Northwest together.
Oh my God.
That's why I met Garth.
I've typed the name of her school into the webpage so that everybody knows.
Well, maybe now I should check and make sure it doesn't say
Oh
Central.
my gosh, I was thinking the exact same thing.
Hold
Janet,
on.
that's so
I'm going to
good.
look for it right now.
So hi everybody, welcome to another session.
Hold on,
of Psych
I just
Sessions.
talked over you. Go ahead.
Like I'm not used to that. Hi everyone, welcome to another session of Psych Sessions. I'm here in Denver, Colorado at the annual conference of teaching 2019 with Janet Peters. Hi Janet.
Hi.
And Janet is a faculty member at Washington State University, Tri-Cities. There's someone else here too. Say hi, Garth.
Hey everyone. I'm so excited to be sitting down with Janet. Janet's been on our hit list for ACT and
wow, that's really not the way to say it.
Isn't it?
Out of context, that sounds really bad.
Well, no, it's. I think it's an honor, don't you? A hit list.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited. Even if you chose to word it that way, I'm still feeling very honored.
Yeah, Janet, I'm really glad that you are here with us because today, after the second day of the conference, or I guess we came in pretty early. It feels like we've been here for a while, Eric.
Yeah,
and
always does.
I just needed to have an interview of somebody, and all our interviewees are wonderful, but I was like, who can I talk to who's just going to be like easy for me? I know them. It's going to be easy to talk to them, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you because we're on the TIP Northwest Steering Committee together, and you now work out in Washington State, which is fantastic. When we see each other, we went to the bank together a little while ago.
Yes, that was quite the bonding experience, meeting Garth in
You
Seattle.
went to the bank together.
She's
in
our
Seattle.
treasurer for TIP Northwest.
Gotcha.
So she has a card now. Yeah. And so I'm excited to be here and doing this with you. And maybe you could just tell us, what do you do Monday to Friday?
Yeah. Well, I'm in a teaching track position. So WSU is a R1 institution. And so, but I'm on a branch campus doing a teaching track position. So it's 60% teaching, 40%, which I'm going to tell you, secondary area of emphasis is what they call it. And I love that freedom. It means I get to do lots of scholarly work, and it looks a variety of ways. So I can do scholarly research, which I do, and I love doing that, mostly on service learning and teaching stats. But I also get to do stuff like contributing to ACT or TIP Northwest counts, and just engaging in the scholarly community and scholarly teaching. So I'm the coordinator of faculty development on our campus. So that's how I spend a lot of my non-in-classroom time.
So it's 60% teaching, 40% other.
Correct.
But other can be, it sounds like a bunch of other things.
Yeah. I get to define it.
So, but it sounds like it also includes service by default.
It does, yes, that's
So there
correct.
must be some service, and it comes in that 40% slice.
That is correct. It is
Gotcha.
secondary area and service mushed together. So they're working on actually changing that, so it's a little bit more delineated. But I get to choose.
Have you
It's
all
awesome.
heard of this at other? Is this normal? This seems abnormal.
I don't know if it's normal or abnormal.
I don't know, but I really like it. It's one of the things that drew me to the job of being able to define how I spend my time engaging in scholarly pursuits, because I love ACT, I love STP, and getting the choice to have my contributions be part of that and have it be an active part of my promotion was important to me. So I love it. I don't know if it's normal or not, but I like it.
Wonder what you're bumping up against is that I think by having only 2 buckets, I suspect that the total in reality adds to more than 100%.
Yeah, but I also think that's everyone. I don't meet too many faculty who don't feel like they're doing more than what's prescribed by their job.
Yeah, but if I'm on a 40-40-20, I think I might be close to equal amounts of teaching and research with service accounted for. On yours, I could see I love doing all this other stuff. So it's teaching, and all this other stuff could I'll bet all of your other stuff is as much as your teaching. Which means you're not doing 60-40, you're doing 60-60.
Well, I don't know. I'm going up for promotion this year. I just put in my documents, so I'm not going to say either way, but I'm
Yeah.
so I don't know if that's true.
I
but
think your nervous laugh means I just made my point.
you might have struck a nerve.
Research is in the 40% then,
Yes, if I choose to.
if you choose to.
Yeah.
And can you get promotion without doing research in this position?
Yep, it's writ
just
large.
through service.
Yep. So I have a colleague who she really focuses on undergraduate research. So she coordinates our undergraduate research symposium on campus and finds opportunities for students to get involved in research. And she tries and helps faculty put research embedded into their courses. And that's what she does. That's what. She just got promoted to associate professor, and that's how she spends her time. She doesn't do research. She just contributes to undergraduate research.
So I think what I'm bumping up against here is, and I'm not at a 4-year institution, and so this is a different world for me. But in my mind, the traditional is there's probably some sort of service component, I'm thinking, right, to the college or to the discipline, but that there's a teaching and research component at a lot of universities, and in the traditional sense, research, publications.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's what I was thinking. This sounds different than that. And
It is, yeah. And I mean, the other thing that I personally really like about it is that the term research, we we talk about as scholarly contributions. Right. So it doesn't have to be peer-reviewed research for it to count towards my promotion. Now, like a research faculty, right, they would have to publish and impact factor and all the like standard metrics, but mine can be scholarly contributions like contributing to the GSTA's blog, right? That counts as a scholarly contribution. If I'm talking about teaching and using empirical support for the things that I'm blogging about, talking about, those types of things count as scholarly. They can count as scholarly contributions.
But could you? And I promise we won't spend an hour talking about this alone. But can that 40% slice truly be defined by the faculty member? So could it be all service?
The short answer is no. It truly can't be solely defined by the faculty.
Okay.
So you work with your, depending on where you are, your program lead, your department chair, and you figure out what do you want that also complements the mission of the department or the college. So I think when you suggest anything scholarly, they're always like, yeah, definitely.
Right.
Making the case for other less traditional norms, like we have someone who does a lot of community outreach and engagement. I think that is a little bit more of, how do we make sure that this is a cohesive contribution to the university? And so those ones are a little bit more of a sell. But we also have a lot of autonomy in picking what that secondary area is.
Cool.
Yep.
So
it's awesome. I really like it.
That drew you to that job?
It did, yeah. That is, my family's in Washington, which I would love and cherish my family, so being close was important to me. But in terms of the variety of jobs, that particular job and the way that it was written, that I felt like I could balance teaching, which is my first and foremost passion, and also have this flexibility to do the types of work I was interested in. It was like, that felt like the fit I was looking for. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about that? About an organization hiring faculty into that split, that 60-40 split?
Well, I think Janet actually hit on it. At some level, you have to have some organizational body looking at the whole unit and making sure all the needs are met. If 5 hires in a row come in and say, I want to do service, I want my 40% to be service to the community, 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 then no one's doing undergraduate research. It has to be a coordinated departmental effort. So it's really not degrees of freedom, wahoo! There has to be, someone's got to serve on the curriculum committee. Somebody's got to, the department as a whole has to serve the university.
Yeah.
So.
And we had those discussions as part of my job interview. I said, we have the secondary area. What do you envision that looking like for you? And I said, these are the things I love and am passionate about. And they, hopefully, for many reasons, felt like that was a good fit. And I imagine they did that with the other candidates as well, as seeing what that is and picking someone who's going to be strategic and complement the rest of everyone.
But the year you were hired, let's say, if someone in the pool against you said, oh, I just hate doing research, I'm burned out, I just did my dissertation, I don't want to do that, that could have knocked them out that year. But the following year, the following hire, maybe the department's in a really strong strength space, and then maybe you can take someone who is less interested in cranking out research. So, as long as you get that balance across people, I think it's lovely to give people that flexibility, that work-life balance flexibility. But you still got to teach all your classes to serve your majors. You still got to serve the university. You still got to serve the community. You still got to meet accreditation needs. So.
Do you guys have enough faculty that are sitting on these committees, the curriculum committees? And
yeah. And I think, I will say one thing I really like about the way that we do that is because we have a secondary area of emphasis, I feel like we get to be more strategic about our committees because it has to fit into our secondary area, and that feels really good to be, for me, like I love being on the retention committee because I'm passionate about that, and we serve students who are maybe disenfranchised, and so helping those students and see it through graduation, I like, and that fits into my secondary area. So I really like that, and we're a big enough department, we don't have problems filling the committees and filling the service, and I think having the clinical track faculty, that's what they call it, which is a whole other discussion about why it's called that. But having them, especially on our campus, I think creates like the most robust undergraduate experience, because the undergraduates have faculty, have lots of faculty who are devoted to creating really high impact practice undergraduate experiences.
So can you give us the demographics? How many students, how many majors, how many faculty?
Oh, dear.
Your best guess. This is not a quiz.
For my department. So I know that we have roughly 1,800 students. I could not tell you the number of psych majors, especially because our students can't declare a psych major until they pass statistics. So the number of majors is a little underrepresented because they might be in their third year or fourth year. They want to declare a psych major, but they literally can't yet because they haven't taken stats. What was the other question you asked? Size, number of majors?
Number of faculty?
Number of faculty. So on our campus, there's 5 of us, 3 research and 2 the teaching emphasis positions.
So, and the 5 teach the entire major. I mean, you're not a transfer campus. You're
correct. We teach the full curriculum from freshman to senior. We teach a lot.
What are most students majoring in there? Is there a lot of agriculture?
So actually, not agriculture. We have a wine science program. It's this amazing, well-developed wine science program, and then engineering, because of our campus, we're adjacent to the Hanford research site, and so they call it the research district. And there's all these government labs, and there's so much engineering and geology and chemistry and all of those like STEM classes that tends to be a really a big piece of our undergraduate education is those types of, especially engineering, chemistry, biology, geology.
So I don't know if you have a plan for this. I can see from your copious notes maybe that you do. Janet, we do this a lot. Maybe we can continue on reverse chronology. So was Washington State your first job out of grad school or postdoc?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and so if we could do reverse chronology, where did you graduate from?
So I graduated from Colorado State in 2014 with my degree in IO psychology.
In IO? So a PhD in IO?
Yeah.
Okay, very cool.
So why are you not out making... Is that what you're going to ask?
Well, here's what I tell students all the time. PhD in IO is overkill unless you want to be a college professor. Because the typical degree, the modal degree, is a master's in IO.
That's correct.
For going into the workforce. Yeah.
I knew from the first year I was in graduate school, I wanted to be an academic. Like that was I should say it was never a question in my mind. There was a period when my colleagues were going out and getting very high paying jobs. And I was like, well, maybe consulting wouldn't be so bad. And I still think it would be great, but there's something about teaching that I just would never... I just don't think I could ever give up.
Well, but you don't have to rule the other out. I mean, there are a bunch of colleagues I know that have consulting gigs on the side.
That is correct.
Yeah.
I wonder, because I was going into a counseling career, and then I switched into academia along the way. But at some point, I got so out of practice that even now, I think about my colleagues who have been doing that for the 15 years that I've been teaching, and I wonder, do you lose your edge? Do you are you like, how far am I behind when it comes to doing that kind of side gig? How does IO work like that? Do you know?
I will say it feels the same. Whether that's reality or my perception of reality, I couldn't tell you. It feels the same. So I have a colleague who she works at Amazon, and she does this really high-level cross-international training. She flies to India to train, and I think, we have the same degree. Like, that is, I do feel like I've been teaching, and so I did quite a bit of consulting previously, and it's fun and it's engaging, but when you've been out of it, and I think, oh, that's like, I do feel a little bit of that. Could I just jump back in that easily? I don't know. Maybe I could, but... I think you probably could. Would it be easy at the very first? Maybe not. But I tell people all the time, that PhD, that doctorate, that is a big old Swiss Army knife.
you know? And so the master's degree is a Swiss Army knife, the PhD is a Swiss Army knife. And that's a skill set. Maybe you haven't used them in a while. Maybe it needs a little WD-40. But once you start using those muscles again, it would come back.
Well, and I'm a big believer that skills transfer. Right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, standing in front of students and teaching them about statistics and trying to get them to buy in and understand why it's important for psychology. Because, like, at least in my stats classes, students will say, "Oh, I love helping people. I'm not this math person," right? Like no, you are everyone is a math person. You are by definition a person. You are a math and a people person. But they just the connections are hard, and so I'm a big believer in skills transfer. So getting up and sort of helping students understand the importance of stats, the applications of stats, why stats matters, that is a skill that's transferable to the workforce, right? Like getting up in front of employees and saying, this is why this initiative matters, or this is why, it's a different context and the content's different, but the underlying skill set's the same. And I think being able to understand and transfer those skills is like a key aspect in being adaptable and flexible. And also I think it's important for our students to know that, to see that like the skills that they're learning apply, and that it is that's the thing about psychology. It is a Swiss Army knife. Like,
do your students get that in your stats class? I mean, what you're saying sounds amazing. Do they understand how stats will translate into wherever they go?
No. Sorry. Oops. Sorry. Oops, that was my inner voice.
So I would say I hope so. And I think I'm getting to the point where I've changed my course enough that I've very explicitly started to incorporate that into my course. So in my course, we do a service learning project. And so on the first day, I show them, these are the top 10 skills listed by Forbes that they want for new employees. These are the skills we're going to do throughout this service learning project. And this is why these skills matter. And this is, you might not ever go and conduct firsthand data analysis, but you will work with people because we work in groups, right? And you will have to be a critical consumer of information. And so I work really hard to put the things that we're doing into actionable resume language. And then they spend, at least in stats, we do like 5 reflections throughout the semester where I give them like a suite of employee skills, and they have to pick which ones they felt like they've worked on or that they've been making progress towards, how it relates to their future career. And so we do that. And then at the end of the semester, they have to present their data, not just to me. They present these findings. They do it to the community partner. And the community partner comes in, the head of, usually it's like, I try and get like a panel. So it's like 3 of these members of this. The last one we worked with was a local homeless shelter. And so they brought people in, and the students had to present, not to me, but to them, and take this technical information and put it, how would you present this to a lay audience? And so that is nerve-wracking for them.
Oh, yeah.
Because public speaking is its own skill set, let alone public speaking to a lay audience. And while it's nerve-wracking for them in the reflections, and who knows, right? Maybe they're telling me what I want to hear. But I would say I feel like they walk away at least with, even if I don't love or get statistics, I feel like I've gained some skills or I've practiced to that end.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. So Janet, are you recording these? Record the student presentations.
So I haven't. The closest that we've come to recording is our marketing department found out that we were doing this because the students go in and they volunteer at the organization, and it's a semester-long project, and they've come in and take pictures, but I've never recorded.
Whose idea was this?
It was mine.
Yeah.
So my inner voice right now, as I was smirking, and Eric and I were smirking at each other while you're talking, because
it's a good smirk.
We're thinking, we're just thinking,
means.
oh, here's a teacher who's just killing right now.
Oh, absolutely. So
which is fun.
So I have my fingers this way because this is called a 2-camera shoot, and so you literally want to get the permission to have 2 cameras during this presentation, one on the students presenting and one on the community partners. Because when someone edits this video for you, you're going to have a 2-camera shoot, and someone's going to edit it for you, sometimes showing the students presenting and sometimes showing the reaction of the community partners watching these stat students. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because not only is this good for your students, it's good for you, it's good for your department to show everything you just said, real world skills in a 1-semester class. And they may not remember t-tests, and they may not remember the assumptions and the degrees of freedom formula, but they might remember that they helped a homeless shelter. And they might remember that they did the service learning. And I don't know, I hear stories on my campus all the time about internships and service learning opportunities turning into job offers after the semester is over, after they graduate.
Yeah, so this was, to me, the most exciting outcome of this. And this is to your point of like, are they getting things out of it? Do they know? So like with the local homeless shelter, they had an opening for a case manager position. And one of the students in the class was like, I loved working with them. She applied and got the position. And so I feel like that's a win. Or this semester in my org psych class, we're doing, I'm going to call it like a bite-sized service learning. It's not the scope of the stats one. But the student, their very first assignment is go learn about the organization that you signed up for. And they went and looked at it and they're like, oh, they have an opening. And he applied for it and got the position. And so now has a job that's helping, but it's at the organization that he's doing a project on. And so I think that, like I said, I don't know all the outcomes, and maybe there's negative outcomes I'm unaware, but I feel like I'm seeing good, actionable outcomes from these projects. And research outcomes. Also, I didn't mention that, but also research outcomes.
So 5-10 minutes ago, I said, do you think your students are carrying this forward? And Eric said, no. Do you want to take that back at all or not?
No, I don't, because
it was a pretty quick no.
Yeah. Okay, I'll tell you what. I'm not going to take it back. I'm going to change it to maybe.
Okay.
I'm going to change it to maybe.
Well, you didn't expect that answer, I don't think.
No, that was a pretty damn good answer. I got to tell you. I got to tell you. But the next better step would be to be systematic about it and do the assessment piece and to track over time.
I did.
Okay, I haven't read it in a journal yet.
Well, part of my problem is that our class sizes are so small.
Okay.
And so they're 18. So I've been collecting data for a few semesters now, and trying to get some traction with some data. And I would like to look right now. Most of my outcomes are a little bit more proximal. So it's mostly how students felt about the project. I've tried to look specifically at assessing skills, because that's one of the areas I'm trying to target. I do want them, I hope that it increases their stats knowledge, but I was actually more thinking about changing their perceptions about stats and changing this idea that they take this class as a check mark to the major. Because I told you earlier in the podcast, they have to take stats to be a psych major. Right. So a lot of them really view this class as this anxiety-ridden hurdle they have to get through. And my original reason I had the whole service learning is I just wanted it to matter to them. And then after doing it once, I just felt like there was a lot of potential. And so then my goal is really skills. And so I have the proximal, the pre, and the post. I would like to maybe see in some future endeavor when I get a grant of $1 million of following up and seeing what that looks like further out.
And I'll still make the argument, it may not lead to improvements in their statistical skills, but it may lead to amazing improvements in things like satisfaction with college, satisfaction in the major, retention in college, retention in the major, which I will actually gently argue, and I apologize, that are more important than remembering how to do a t-test, because very few of our psych majors are going to need to know a t-test after they have their bachelor's degree in psychology.
And I would say that's the angle that I took from it, is that, like, if I hadn't gone to graduate school, I would not be able to sit here and tell you what a t-test is, right? If I would have cut off at my bachelor's. But I do remember those skills, those experiences that I had that built me to those things. And so when I really thought about my stats class, of like, what do I want my students to get out of it? In 5 years, they're not going to remember a t-test. So, like, what else can we give them and prepare them with? And like as an IO psychologist, we talk a lot about training transfer, where someone goes through training and then can they actually apply that to the job? And I think that sometimes we miss that in the way that we train our students, is we get so heavily focused on t-test versus ANOVA and memorizing the degrees of freedom formula that we miss like, how are they internalizing that as a skill? Because it is still a skill to know that and apply it. But if their response is, well, I'm never going to use this, and you're like, yeah, but you'll critically think, or I hope you do. Right. That was sort of the angle that I don't know if I could say I developed it under, but what it turned into over time.
And I promise I'll get out of this rabbit hole, but I think there's very little transfer from one class to another. I think prerequisites. I think the notion of we make nurses at Boise State take Psych 101 so they'll better understand human behavior. I'm skeptical. We make our students take stats before they take research methods. It's a prerequisite sequence. I've actually studied it a little bit, and there's very little evidence of transfer training, which was actually what my dissertation was about, transfer training, back in the Stone Age, and prerequisites for the most part are about enrollment management. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I'm stopped there.
No, I want to talk more about stats with you, because I know it's
sure?
something. Well,
because I will literally talk about it all day.
I know you're,
but then I want to circle back. I was doing reverse chronology.
Well, yeah,
after we're done with stats. I want to come back and see where she.
Well, okay. So before I ask you my stats question, I'm going to ask you, where did you learn to think about teaching like this? That it should matter, because that's what you asked. Like, what do these students need from this course that will actually matter?
Colleagues that came before, honestly. Meaning, I'm a relative ECP, so I'm early career psychologist. So when I started my job, you're given kind of, here are your new preps. I had never taught stats before when I started teaching it. And it's kind of like, here's your materials, and this is how it's been done in the past, and which I am so thankful for. That is what helped me survive my first semester and year. And once I had it under my belt and the content and not being so scared of the content, I think I had this moment of when I took stats when I was an undergrad, I was genuinely petrified. Like, I was someone who hadn't taken math since high school. I was that person who maybe viewed it negatively and like, I have to slog through this. And so as I was doing this course, I thought, how can I do it in a way that previous Janet like would have understood? And so I started looking at how other people were teaching the course. And I would say, I think answering this question, I'd be remiss if I did not give acknowledgement to Jessica Hartnett at Gannon. She runs the Not Awful and Boring Teaching Stats, and she is brilliant. Like, she understands the way, like, her ability to apply and communicate stats, like, that was the first time that I was like, oh my gosh, you're finding funny things about stats and memes. And so the very first iteration of changing my stats class was like, oh, how do I make it more applied and fun? And then as I read more and talked, and you start having these conversations at ACT, right? Like, that's the beauty of this, is you start going to these presentations and being like, man, they're doing that well. And I think I don't know. I think hearing about being involved in the field and hearing how other people were doing it is really what I was like, I need to change the way that I'm doing this, because this is adequate. I'm checking, like I was doing what the students were doing. I was checking off the boxes. And I don't know. At some point I looked around at other people who were doing more than that and thought, I can do that. Like, I can and I want to. So
yeah,
I don't know. That's a really long-winded answer. I'm sorry.
No, that's really helpful. And I do want to talk about stats before we finish today, but let's go back to.
Well, actually, I have one more stats question.
Oh, well, then let's go for it.
Do you have one more stats question, or do you have more?
Well, I want to get into a conversation we had 2 days ago.
I wasn't there.
No, but you go ahead with your question.
So when are you going to write your stats textbook?
I was thinking about it, and I don't know if we can record this. I'm gonna say I'm not, because I just reviewed Jessica Hartnett's stats book, and hers, they just accepted it for thing, and hers, she is writing the textbook I feel like is missing from the field. Now, will I write my own? Maybe, but for now, she's going to write a brilliant book.
Okay, so we will go into our conversation because you have an idea. We were at the top. Actually, you were there too. We were at the Teaching of Psychology Innovator. It was a workshop, a pre-conference workshop to ACT, where 12 people came in kind of with non-traditional ideas for various things. How would we classify that? Not only dissemination of teaching of psychology, or maybe that's the best way to say it.
They had big ideas they wanted to explore.
Right. And you have a big idea. Can we just talk about it
Sure.
a little bit? Where did you end on after the incubator was over?
Well, I went. Can I start with where I started? Which was like, in my head, I was thinking every time I talk to colleagues who also teach stats, we have this instant camaraderie of like, man, that's hard the first time you teach it, and there's just this instant like students have this anxiety, and everyone who teaches stats wants to teach it better. That's like, especially because it's a linchpin in most schools' curriculum. It's required in some way or another, whether they take in psych, whatever. So I started with like, man, there are a lot of us out here who want to teach stats better. We want to do these skills-based things. We want to move beyond hand calculations and memorizing formulas. Like, I don't care if my students know the formula for Cohen's D. They're not going to know that in 10 years. What I care about is, do they understand data visualization so that when, I won't name a specific organization, posts a graph that's misleading, they can be a better consumer of information and those underlying skills. So, and every time I talk to someone who teaches stats, they're like, yeah. And so I thought, we need to get all of us together in one place and have like a teaching stats psych boot camp conference, something. Put us together in a room so that we can see how each other is doing this and share ideas for these. Not everyone has to do a service learning project. That's fine if no one else wants to do it, but faculty are out there doing amazing things in their stat class. And there are some who are like, I'm not doing amazing things, but I would love to learn how, and I want to put them all in one place. So that was the beginning. I was pie in the sky, this is amazing. After it, I thought, well, maybe that's a bit much. Maybe I should do something a little bit more bite-sized for my time. And then, so that was where I left off, and that answers your question. But then today, in a workshop, we were talking about a workshop, and the stats thing came up, and like 4 people after me were like, if there was a conference for this would be so amazing. And I thought, well, now I'm back to the conference or pre-workshop or boot camp or whatever we want to call it. So the short answer is I thought I had landed on something, and now I feel re-inspired to think bigger again.
Yep.
Something I've seen at APS. I meant to attend it last year. Have you heard of a hackathon? There's something called a hackathon.
Yeah, right, where they put teams of computers,
no,
students?
this is teams of people, and this was faculty members.
No.
And they work on like a syllabus or a course or something, and you commit to like half a day, and it's facilitated by a team. And they did it at APS last year. I was going to stop in on it. And you can come in and come out. And I think it was about research methods last year. And so that could be, rather than committing to an entire conference, if you did, if ACT is going to be 2 days last year and you had your group of people commit to a half-day hackathon at the beginning or tail end, they're already traveling. A little bit more expense, but starting, it's kind of like the incubator. We got people to come in on the front end of a conference they were already coming to for extra 3 hours. How do you tack on that kind of thing? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm gonna say that I'm just gonna throw something out there because I think the conference is obviously a great idea. I think that there are people out there who would need it, but the challenge is getting those people into the room. And are people going to have the expense? It could mean an extra day early, and not only just an afternoon, depending on where the conference is, right? And so I think that's great. But I'm gonna maybe suggest that when you are in these conversations with these stats instructors, and you're finding this excitement, this shared excitement immediately, I'm just going to say that you are the common denominator in these conversations. And I know you're not going to like to hear this, but not everybody, even people like, and I have this experience where I talked to somebody who's thought a lot about intro psych. Like Sue Franz has talked a lot about intro psych over the years. And there were times where what she was saying I was excited about, but I wasn't leading the way she was leading as thinking through it. I wasn't spending my time reading this blog. I hadn't asked those questions. So just because you have there is this shared need that you've identified out there, this is where I'm going to get back to where I think that you are an expert in thinking through this. And in fact, what I suggested to her is there a way that she can, and you said textbook, I was saying something like a podcast, some sort of recording, something where people could take these, because you were saying how to teach t-tests. Like that would be a topic that you would love to tell people how to make it more engaging for students. I love the idea of that, just sitting somewhere where people can reach out and grab it on a commute and where they can enter that conversation with you, because I really do believe you're the common denominator in those.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but when I hear someone talk that passionately about that topic like that, there's a textbook in them. Now, whether you want to do it, whether you want to wait, whether it comes out in some other form, but don't ever think that there's not a textbook in you.
So, and I mean, I think that's what my gut reaction is. Like, I don't know the first thing about writing a textbook.
They have people for that.
That's the quick no, is like, that's someone else, right? I have the passion for implementation. The textbook, I think that's I've never done it. How do I do it?
Wait a second. All right. And how many years ago was it that you had never taught stats?
5.
Okay, so 6 years ago, if someone had come up to you and said, how passionate are you about teaching statistics? What would your reaction been?
Derision?
All right, Janet. So someone just said to you, there's a book in you, and you have a skepticism today. Let's circle back 5 or 6 years from now.
Okay, psych sessions 5 years from now. We'll see
I'm just saying, you understand the point I'm trying to make.
Yes, absolutely. I think, yep.
Here's what I concerned. No, I don't know. It's not concerned. Here's what I wonder about. It's you have two things going on. You have your brand, like the way, like who you are, Janet, as a teacher, an inspired, energetic teacher and conversationalist about these things, and then you have your ideas, right? But I would hate to lose the Janet in a textbook.
No, it's the other way around. The textbook lets Janet go public. The textbook lets Janet go national.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's the way I think about it.
Yeah.
Which
probably weird
disagree.
for Janet for us to be talking about this, but that's
especially in the
little
third
bit.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. I am here. I'm here, friends. I have not.
I'm sorry. We're mapping your career.
Yeah.
We're going to take 5% as your
I'm
agents.
kind of into it. I'm viewing this as mentorship. That is the frame.
Oh, that's really sweet that you're taking it that way.
Okay, so I did this one thing. I don't know if I'll ever release it, and I haven't even told you about it, Eric. I started this. I knew this quarter was just going to be just something different for me because I'm teaching an overload. I was throwing a class that I've never taught before, and I've seen all these teachers with these great reflective practices, and so I started recording weekly reflections of just on what I'm experiencing.
Deep Thoughts by
Deep
Jack
Thoughts.
Handy.
That by Jack Handy.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it is not difficult. I don't know if I'll release it. I'm going to run it by a few people and see if it's something that others would want to listen to eventually. But it's just not difficult to get a microphone, and maybe it would be. You'd probably be a little more systematic than what I'm talking about. But
I doubt it.
Well, maybe not. But it's the textbook is it's a multi-year thing. I mean, it's a big idea, right? The conference is.
As passionate as she is,
it's a commitment.
It's a year and a half.
Right. But
it's 18 months.
But you could tomorrow you could record yourself talking about t-tests and how you have the problems that you have faced and how you have done it, and it could be a 10-15 minute segment that 100 stats instructors are listening to in their car tomorrow.
Right, but it's not one or the other.
No.
It can be a yes and.
Right. All right, I'm done. I don't have to. Yes, I don't have to convince you of that.
So where did you go to graduate school?
Colorado State.
Oh,
in
that's
Fort
right.
Collins, and we're in Denver right now. So this is like kind of a return to home for me, which feels wonderful.
And did you
quite honestly.
start as a PhD in IO? No, yeah, you must have for graduate school.
Correct. Yes.
And where undergraduate, please?
So I went to the University of Wisconsin Green Bay.
You know that?
What? Did
Yeah.
I liked watching Eric's face when you
Me
said
too.
that.
Wait, so
Just see the wheels turning.
What years were you there?
So I was there. I started in 2003 and graduated in 2008.
So did I meet you there?
We have met, right? I think because you came out to Green Bay.
I did.
Yeah.
I did somewhere in that time frame, I'm thinking.
I think that's right. I think I picked you up from the airport in my
Oh my gosh,
boyfriend's
did you?
at my boyfriend at the time's car. We're now married. It's my husband Jay, and he drove a green Buick LeSabre. It was a beautiful.
Wow.
It was a boat, and I didn't have a car. I was in Wisconsin, and I picked you up. I think you were interviewing.
I'm so
No, I wasn't-
enjoying
I
this
wasn't
right now.
interviewing.
Oh, you were just visiting.
I was giving a talk.
Oh, yes. Okay.
yeah,
So,
Regan
yeah.
invited me out for a talk.
Yeah, I was the student who picked you up all these years later.
Wow.
I know.
You know,
I couldn't
Eric,
remember-
you live such a
couldn't remember
lavish
if it was you.
lifestyle, traveling all over the world, having undergraduates pick
Not
you up.
everybody that gets picked up in the green LeSabre. I'm telling you. This is how
It's
we
like-
roll
It's amazing.
in Green Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Green
Yeah,
Bay.
that's why, when you asked at the very beginning about my background and having the PhD in IO, but going into academics, right? That's why you get your PhD in IO and not a master's. And I knew from when I was an undergraduate that I want to be an academic because of Regan. So.
But when you went to Green Bay, did you start as a psych major?
Oh, no. Do you want to hear the story?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. No, I went to Green Bay. I'm from Spokane, Washington. And so I was going to college. I'm a first-gen student. I was going to college on an athletic scholarship. And that was the framework in which I viewed college was, hey, it's this bonus for this other thing that I'm doing.
What sport?
Swimming.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so I viewed it as this sort of, I didn't know what I was doing there. I was that student who becomes a freshman and I didn't understand the context of the university. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just kind of floated. And at some point, I think in my second year, they told all the athletes, you have to declare some major. So I declared human development. And I kind of went through, and I was a reasonable student. I wasn't a bad student or anything. I just didn't have it, right? Like that. I didn't know what I was doing. I was kind of aimless. So while I enjoyed learning, I didn't have a direction or an outlet. And I took Psych 105, Psych 100 or whatever it was then, intro. Yeah. And I took it with Regan, and it was a great class, and I loved him. He's an amazing instructor.
We can edit this part out.
And so it was really amazing. And I remember after maybe the first or second exam, I can't remember which, I had done really well on it. And he emailed me because this is a frequent practice of his where he emails top scores and says, just want to let you know you did a really good job. And when he emailed me that, he said, hey, I know you're a student athlete. And I think it's awesome that you can balance these things out. And I'm just kind of saying hey, kudos to you. And I thought that was the first time I'd heard from a professor. And I was like, oh, they know I'm what? And so I finished the semester out. I really had a passion for it, changed my major to psych, ended up taking another class. I started to get to know the other faculty. And I took another class with Regan. And in that class, he said, I'd done well on an exam. And he emailed me and said, hey, have you ever thought about graduate school? And the reality was no, I'm barely survived. I'm can't believe I made it to college. The thought of graduate school had never crossed my mind. And he said, well, I think it just gave me encouragement that mentors do. And so it was the first time that this sort of world opened up that I never, ever would have imagined previously. And so I did that, and I worked one semester I was a TA for him, and getting to see the kind of pull the curtain back and to see the intentionality of the pedagogy. And I don't know, I was hooked. And that's the very long story of how I'm here and why I chose academics over anything.
But as a student athlete, you weren't getting encouragement to be involved in academics. So it took him to do that.
Well, no, they were really supportive of academics in general, right? We had study tables that we had to go to make sure to support us, but not in that, hey, you're being, what I felt like I got from Regan that I didn't get other places, and this is what I now try to, I know what an impact that had on me, I try and do it for my students now, is that someone who said, you're doing well, how do you take it to the next level? And I hadn't even, I mean, I barely made it to the current level. I had never thought beyond that level. And so someone telling me to think beyond it was a really important watershed moment for me. And I mean, I think that's why I'm passionate about the impact I think we can have, because that's how I felt.
So swimming was the ticket to college.
Correct.
Is that fair
Yes.
to say?
Would you have gone to college if you weren't swimming?
No. So I have a lot of siblings, and my parents, they supported education, right? And they would love for us to go, but they kind of said, if we can't pay for it, so if you can figure out a way to go for it. And I mean, 4 of my siblings, we all got scholarships. And so that was really the ticket for us to get there. But I mean, that, in my mind, and putting myself back there, I was like, well, I got here, right? That was the ticket to the end place. And I was even just happy to be there. To think beyond it just never occurred to me naturally until someone said, you should think about it. Even if you decide not to, at least keep that option open.
How many sibs altogether?
So I have 10 siblings.
All right, so I oftentimes call this the portion of the program. It's none of my damn business. So if I get there, we can just edit out and it'll sound smooth. It really is none of my business, but I'm a curious guy. Mm-hmm. 10, all from the same mom and dad.
So, and I don't really care if anyone hears this; it doesn't matter. So my parents were 22 years apart. And so my dad was married for 25 years, and he had 6 kids.
Gotcha, sure.
And then him and and then, so that's happening over there.
Right.
My mom had a son when she was a teenager that she gave up for adoption. So that's one of my other biological siblings.
Sure.
And then my parents had 4 together.
Okay.
Wow.
So it's a blended family.
Yeah, it's it's a very blended family.
So
You are close to the youngest, right?
Yeah, out of the 11 total, I'm number 10.
Okay.
So the age range from the oldest to the youngest?
My oldest sibling is 63 or 4 maybe. And my younger sister, who's pretty close to me, she just turned 33.
Okay, so a 30-year gap. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting.
Isn't it?
There's a 19-year gap in my family between my oldest brother and me.
Is there?
Yeah, I'm the youngest. I'm the baby. Yeah. And plus that probably, so out of the 11, 5 of you went to college.
So 2 of my older siblings went, so 6 of us. But the 4 that were between my mom and dad, we all got swimming scholarships, because that's what we did in our family. We swam. So we all got swimming scholarships.
Where did you swim?
Where did I swim?
Yeah, like at the local pool growing up?
Oh, yeah. Just anywhere we could find water.
But how do you get how do you get so good? I mean, a lot of kids go swimming.
Yeah,
How do you get good?
Same way you get good at anything, like, right? How do you get good at publishing? You just practice and practice, and even when you face failure, you go through it.
Why did you practice so much?
You move up the ranks.
Yeah, but a lot of kids go swimming and they splash at each other. They don't do laps back and forth.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it was the way our family spent time together. Like, so all my siblings swam. So that was our family bonding. We went to meets, and as we got better, right? So you're talking about regional and national meets. So by the time, I don't know, teenager-ish, like, we were flying to the National Hall of Fame pool in Florida every year, where they host YNATS is what it's called. And like, that was like our family vacation. It was just the way our family spent time together. And
so you must have loved watching the Olympics. That was probably a big deal.
The best.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the Summer Olympics, swimming or otherwise, are like, all Olympics are just inspiring. You're seeing people at peak performance. And is there anything
you're
better than that? Gymnasts. I don't care. I will watch anyone who's the best at what they do. Honestly, I love that, like, because they've trained.
Yeah.
And that's how. You train, and you do the same thing you do with academics. You grind.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is right there. You see it?
Uh-huh.
I don't.
Yeah. Sorry, we have code.
Oh.
No, Janet, this is it. This is, it's the training, it's the transfer, it's the passion that you have for stats. It's the swim champion that you are, maybe, or you were.
I like to say I'm a swammer.
Yeah.
Because I don't swim anymore.
Yeah, no, that passion is right there. I mean, When I mentioned Olympics, did you see her light up?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same way you light up about teaching stats.
Aw.
It's interesting to me that your parents invested in this for you, because even though they couldn't do college, look at the payoff for like just something like swimming. They found something that you were passionate about.
Do you think that was was that an intentional strategy? Hey, this is a method by which you can get a scholarship to go to college.
Not at the beginning, right? Like when, because I'm on the younger end, right? So my
Right.
older sister, like, it wasn't really until she went to college and she got my older sister got a full ride at the University of Wyoming. And I think that's when I was like, oh, like this is great. And I think we would have done it even if that hadn't been the
Right.
case. Like I said, it was family time, it was whatever. But I think that was the time that we were like, oh, there actually could be like a literal outcome or benefit to this. And my mom, I mean, we couldn't afford college, so my mom was really diligent. Swimming's a very expensive sport. Like I mentioned, like going to Florida and bringing several kids to Florida, and that's not the only meet that we're flying to and from, and all of that. And so, like my mom, she would be the treasurer because so she took on this like other job because it reduced the monthly dues. And I think that she was like, this is how I can support them to help them be successful. And that's what I mean. Like, my mom was always supportive. The never thinking about graduate school was never because I was told that wasn't for me or was a waste of time. It just,
Right.
that was beyond anything my family had experienced. And my mom was just like so happy to like help us get to college and to have that sort of ticket that we maybe that opportunity that we wouldn't otherwise have had.
So she
put a lot of work.
You swam because your siblings swam.
Initially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't have any choice, really.
Well, I played the soccer a lot and very competitively. And when I turned about 14, that's when it was like, you can either choose which one you want to be at this like high level of performance at. And I still, at that point, I chose swimming and I still played soccer, but like you can't be Olympic developmental ODP soccer player. I mean, maybe some people could. I couldn't be that high level of soccer player and that high level of swimmer. But I still played that. What else? Volleyball. I played volleyball. So I did lots of other stuff because it was fun.
Were your parents athletes?
Nope. None of my other siblings really did other sports either. I was the only one. I love sports. I will play any game, anytime. If there was an ACT volleyball play sign up, I will be the first to put my first name. That's just an idea. I'm throwing it out there. Maybe next year's Incubator I can.
Tip Northwest. Let's do it. Yeah.
No, I love sports, but I'm pretty much the only one in my family who loves any sport other than swimming.
So if you're playing board games, are you hyper competitive?
I used to be. I now have the ability to understand that other people play for fun. So I have learned more patience, but in my head, I'm very competitive. But I now am better at changing my behaviors to be more in line with who I'm playing with and the purpose that we're playing the game.
But if there happened to be an ACT volleyball game that was being played and it was 6-on-6 academics, would you go for it?
Oh, 100%.
So it wouldn't be playful. Let's just dink around with the volleyball.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be Meet the Fockers where he I don't know if you've seen that, where he
Yes.
spikes the volleyball into
Right.
one of the family members, but maybe 2 notches below there. I'm going to take it seriously.
You're going to take it seriously.
Yeah,
So
unless
if you got a chance to spike at Jane Hallen and you're going to spike it in her face,
Oh,
is that what you're
man.
going to do?
No, that would be 2 notches above. I might just push it hard. Especially I have a pretty good height advantage on her, so
She's thought through it
You're
already.
gonna spike it.
this is the mind of the athlete. Where
Yes, I think that's exactly
Yeah,
right.
the competitor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah, yeah.
I am very competitive, but I also think I'm collaborative too, which is a more
totally
recent
are, yeah.
development.
So
I don't think-
you'll set it up for someone else to spike.
yeah, I would happily do it. If I think you got the better spike and we're gonna get the point, I will happily set you up so that you can spike Jane Hallinan.
If I think I can get off the ground, I think I would spike.
Janet, it has been such a pleasure to sit down with you. So I think we are close to time.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
That has gone fast.
It has, and we've got people wandering around because it's lunchtime here. But that was fun. That was fun.
Anything else that we should cover that you wanted to say?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
We've mapped out your first textbook. What about your second textbook?
I gave Janet about a minute of lead time that we were going to do this interview today. So this is you hadn't thought about anything, and we just went for it, which is the best way to do it.
This
So
is
it's
the
very
best way to do it.
spontaneous.
Yeah. So
well,
you're not worried about it.
Well, thanks for doing it, and have a great conference.
Yeah,
And
thank
Garth,
you.
what school is she from?
Oh, come on.